Yeah, so I started way back in desktop support in the late 1990s, where a lot of people have started. Nowadays, that's not necessarily the case with universities cranking out candidates as they are. But desktop definitely was the start for me. After a couple of years there, I moved into the e-commerce role, and from there, I basically was working from the ground up. Got baptized into what servers were and networking and enterprise infrastructure was like, and I had done some of my own studies. Most of what I know is self-taught, but obviously you have the hands-on experience as well. So yeah, back in the days where technology was much more simplistic than it is today, um, and so I spent those next 10 years just being drenched in that infrastructure and that kind of environment, and so came out with obviously skills in networking, but also automation, virtualization, and just how to run an infrastructure in a data center really. So it's been
Right.
quite a ride. It's been good though. We've seen it fluctuate. It's hard to say for Hitachi, especially because Hitachi Vantara is the sales arm of Hitachi Limited in Japan.
Mhm.
So Hitachi Vantara is the U.S. based side of that, and our focus has been storage arrays, but they've been involved in cloud solutioning from the get go. It has been honestly just from a different perspective as Hitachi's provided all the storage for those cloud solutions. We're moving now into an industry where we're also creating the cloud solutions, not just from a storage array perspective, but also from a computing perspective as well. Boy, it's quite a wide range. Back in the day, even from a university perspective, what you had was really coding tracks, and now you
Mhm.
have 30 or 40 tracks you could follow under the umbrella of IT industry. So for a beginner, someone who's just trying to enter in, they literally have their pick. They can go from cybersecurity to automation to AI to the more run of the mill on the computing side to cloud. There's really no end to it.
Mhm.
The greatest strengths obviously are those who are under the programming and coding and automation side of the umbrella, because that is now being really bled into every industry. Every area now has to have some form of it. I started when I really started into the virtualization, scripting really took off another level. Really had to get the automation in because you simply couldn't do the work
Mhm.
manually. You had to have that automation. So, and that's been the biggest difference I've seen
Mhm.
between when I was running infrastructures to what they do nowadays. Automation is such a key thing. The DevOps is very a common phrase that about 5 years ago came out and has really been saturating the market. That, unfortunately, to make it even more ambiguous, is just IT. It's
Yeah,
really
just everything.
it's really everything because you use automation to simplify tasks. Automation is done from an HR side all the way to the IT side, but it all falls under IT because IT is the one generating that automation.
Right.
Um, so the DevOps or the development operations is really what keeps things running these days. AWS is making things easier on customers because they're able to spin up an infrastructure in the cloud in
Mhm.
seconds, and have it up and running, ready to go in minutes, versus weeks, days and weeks on traditional side. So.
Right. Right.
Yeah, so for those who are just starting out in that way, because you can get into this industry in a variety of ways.
Mhm.
One of those ways is through the certification process, which means you've got exposure. Certifications without experience has one set of value. Certifications with lots of experience is an entirely different discussion.
Mhm.
So what it does do, though, is for the interviewers, is it lets them know at least they've got this level of knowledge, they understand this, so it helps basically clear the room of who knows what. Back in the day, before the certifications were such a big deal or so prolific in all of the areas, you really had to sit down, talk, throw some questions, do different things. Even so now, I know, having gone through AWS interviews myself, they're going to sit down and ask you to whiteboard something. They're going to, even if you have those certifications, they're still going to say and want to see what is your capability. So for me, certifications for those entry people are going to be very important. It's also going to be very important to be able to articulate and understand what you're doing, not just pass a test.
Mhm.
So those two are very critical, to have deep understanding that will then allow you to pass the test and get that job, because you'll be able to show the aptitude for it. The truth to the matter in all of what you guys are doing, which I think is great, and it gives people a chance to really jump into an industry if they want to, is that the real issue is what the issue has always been, and that is people and people management. Being able to communicate, being able to articulate, and being able to handle really intense situations. The interview process these days for AWS, for Amazon, or sorry, for Microsoft, for even if you're doing, I should say actually Amazon AWS, because those are two different entities actually, um, is that they are going to throw you through 5, 6 interview process. You're going to hit with multiple different people questions. They're going to exasperate you. They're going to get you to your limit really fast. So honestly, being able to communicate, have the presence of mind, is really actually what's important. And more importantly, being able to think on your feet, collaborate, and be okay with not knowing everything. Like, these interviews trying to make it sound like you need to know everything, and nobody knows everything. Not one person knows all of the picture. And so that's also kind of helped to dispel that. Um, they spend a lot of money on the individual, so that's why they go through such a rigorous interview process. But when you're on the other side, everybody's checking with everybody else. It's an entirely different game. So it's almost like they're lying to you, but they want to know what they have to work with. So when they're studying, I would have them study how to interview. That is going to be more important, because once they say they see, let's say just a basic AWS certification, or it's even the architect level or whatever it have you, they're going to go, okay, great, and now they're going to start on this entire other line of questioning, and that's what they're going to need to be ready for. Well, sometimes it's real hard knocks listening to the people. Blogs and everything are great. There's so many resources out there on how to do that. Um, the biggest thing is to not be intimidated by them. If they really want you, and if you're really good, you don't need to worry about it. If you know your value, you know your number, then that's what you go in with. Unfortunately, the person who doesn't have the experience doesn't have much to negotiate with, per se. But what they do have the right to do is choose the environment, choose the situation, and sometimes taking the lesser money in a better company is better for them career-wise and health-wise. And everybody, I think in every industry, including IT, more importantly, is talking about wellness, right? Everybody starts talking about when the HR deals and how HR is looking at the company, you're looking about the wellness of your employees. That's really critical. That's another thing. Understand what they're really showing you, so that you really understand what they're telling you. The only number you should really care about is your actual base pay. Anything that's in bonuses and stock options, write off, doesn't even factor into the equation, because they're going to talk it up and do all of that. But at the end of the day, you're not getting paid that, and what you do with it and how the market goes is subject to change.
Mhm.
And so the only thing that you can count on is what they will actually pay you.
Right.
So understanding the negotiation process and the financial side of it is also really critical, because it's easy to
Right.
get blown away with the numbers. For those who are going to the IT, I would just say, look, know what you want to do. It's okay to not know as you're starting and you're trying to figure out which field you want to be in. You might start in coding and end up in management. You might start in management and end up in coding, or you might be in architecture, whatever have you. Um, but just see things through. Just go all the way through. Don't give up. Whatever it is you want to accomplish, don't give up.